In the 1950s, mainstream media was reporting on the ongoing research into LSD and its growing use in psychiatry. Psychology students were even taking the drug to learn of its effects on the human body and mind. Between 1954 and 1959, Time magazine had published 6 positive stories about LSD. As the 1960s arrived, a new generation was starting to take LSD in order to influence a new way of thinking. By the mid-1960s, the growing LSD scene had reached swinging London and musicians began to take the drug in order to influence their music. Psychedelic rock would reach its peak in the late 1960s with 2 distinct styles of it. In Britain, the genre was more whimsical, fueled by childlike wonder, whereas in America it was a lot more heavier and known as acid rock. However, it wasn't until 1966 when both the British and American governments declared LSD an illegal drug, and up until that point there had actually been shops in London where you could try the drug out. So with the drug now made illegal, takers of it had to try and acquire it from drug dealers in the black market. Now welcome back to Revolver In-Depth, and this is episode 11, Dr. Robert. So the song that we're talking about today contains the most overt drug references that the Beatles have made in any of their songs up until this point, and it went largely unnoticed at the time. Now for the most part, Dr. Robert is the brainchild of John Lennon. However, both Lennon and McCartney have claimed separately that McCartney did help him write the bridge for this song, the Well 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 part. Lennon wrote the lyrics around the idea of a Dr. Feelgood, a physician who prescribes drugs under the guise of a legitimate medical practice. Lennon also drew inspiration from the Rolling Stones track Mother's Little Helper, which is the opening track on 1966's Aftermath. As a side note, that's actually a really good album that one day I will actually do a video on because it deserves a video of that song. Anyway, at some point around this period, Mick Jagger met up with John Lennon, and Jagger confessed to Lennon that Mother's Little Helper is indeed about prescribed drugs. So Lennon really liked this idea of writing a song about drugs. So it really did inspire him and think, well, if the Stones can do it, why can't we do it? At some point around this period, Lennon would play his childhood friend Pete Shotton an Ace tape of Dr. Robert, and according to Shotton, Lennon was beside himself with glee at the prospect of millions of people innocently singing along with a song about effectively a drug dealer. Dr. Robert. So what we're going to do now is take a little look at the character of Dr. Robert, because since this song has been released there has been lots of theories flying about this not being a fictional person. It is in fact a real person, and I believe there's 5 names who have been suggested as being potentially this Dr. Robert character. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at these 5 potential Dr. Roberts. So the first name suggested is Robert Freeman, a New York doctor who was known for dispensing vitamin B12 shots laced with amphetamines to his wealthy clients. Freeman bragged about the hundreds of famous names he could list as his clients, including Jackie Kennedy. On a trip to the US, Lennon and McCartney apparently learnt about Freeman and they found it amusing, so some suggest that he was the inspiration behind this song. Now the second name suggested is Robert Fraser, who most people in the Beatles Inner Circle and the wider London scene assumed this song to be about. Now Fraser was an art gallery owner, and more importantly here, he was a reliable source of both pot and cocaine for people in London. He was also a very close friend of both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. The third name suggested is Bob Dylan. Dylan had been the one who had first introduced the Beatles to marijuana in the summer of 1964, so some people argue that he could be the character this song is about because of course his real name is Robert. Now the fourth name suggested is Dr. Robert MacPhail, a fictional character in Aldous Huxley's 1962 book Ireland. Huxley was an advocate of LSD and he would later be included on the cover of Sgt. Pepper in 1967. Now the fifth and final name suggested is John Riley, the dentist friend of John and Cynthia Lennon as well as George and Patty Harrison. Now at a dinner party in March 1965, Riley had laced Lennon and Harrison and their partner's coffee with LSD, providing the 2 Beatles with their first experience of acid. Just as a little side note here, in this day and age, what Riley did there is actually a crime. It's spiking. It's giving them both something that they didn't consent to. So yeah, he'd probably go to prison for that in this day and age, but back then I don't think there was any rules against spiking, so you could just put acid in anyone's coffee if you wanted to. Now Lennon actually further muddied the waters around the identity of Dr. Robert in 1980 when he claimed that the song was mainly about drugs and pills. It was about myself. I was the one that carried all the pills on tour. So yeah, it's certainly not clear who Dr. Robert is. Is he a fictional person? Is he a real person? We don't know, and we never will know, because John Lennon never did confirm this for certain. He just suggested it was about himself, which doesn't really make all that much sense. I mean, it could be, I suppose, but it doesn't make that much sense. But the general consensus is that it's about Robert Freeman, the first one I mentioned, the doctor in New York. I think McCartney has spoke about it being about him, but I don't know. The fact Lennon never commented on it does make you think, it probably isn't about him. I don't know. We'll never know for certain, so it's up to you. I hope it's Bob Dylan. I think that would be the coolest story, but I doubt it is. But Yeah, we don't know who Dr. Robert is, and we never will know for certain who he is. So the Beatles began recording Dr. Robert at Abbey Road Studios, or EMI Studios as it was known then, on April 17th of 1966. Now the song was actually a pretty straightforward one to record. It was much more easy than some of the more complex tracks on Revolver. So to begin with here, the band would work on the basic track for the song. For the basic track, Lennon played rhythm guitar, McCartney played his Rickenbacker bass, Harrison played some maracas, and Starr played drums. Now the band would manage to nail the basic track in 7 takes, and they would deem take 7 to be the best one to start applying overdubs to. So firstly, Harrison would overdub his lead guitar onto the track, and then Lennon would overdub some harmonium onto the track. And with that complete, that was actually all the instruments now recorded for Dr. Robert, and at that point the band wrapped up that day's session and they all went home. Now the second and final session for the song took place 2 days later on April 19th of 1966. Now with all the instruments having been recorded in the previous session, all that was left to do in this session was to overdub the vocals onto the track. So Lennon would now record his lead vocals with a harmony vocal provided by McCartney and then some backing vocals provided by both McCartney and Harrison. After the vocals had all been recorded, work turned to mixing the song. Now during the mixing, the band applied an artificial double tracking to all of the vocals recorded. What is artificial double tracking? I mean, was AI a thing back in 1966? I doubt it. I'm assuming it just means they copied the vocal track onto another tape and then they played it together at the same time, I'm guessing, rather than record 2 vocal tracks to double track it that way, which is the way it was normally done. I'm guessing that's what it means, but I don't know for certain. Can someone confirm in the comments what artificial double tracking is? They would also decide to edit the song down, cutting off 41 seconds of it and the third Well 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 bridge. Now if you want to hear the full unedited version of Dr. Robert, well good news, you can. It was released on 2022 Super Deluxe Edition of Revolver. It's on there as Take 7, which I know is a bit confusing because Take 7 is the master, that's the one that got released. But basically this is the version before they took off the third bridge. So there is the third Well 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 bit. So it's 41 seconds longer, it's about 3 minutes in length rather than 2 minutes 20, whatever it is. So yeah, it's interesting to listen to. I do think they did the right thing taking it off, but yeah, it's still quite an interesting thing to be able to hear the full version of it. Anyway, the mixing for the song was now completed at this stage, and with that, work on Dr. Robert was complete. Revolver was released on August 5th of 1966, and Dr. Robert was sequenced as the 11th track on the LP. It was also the 4th track on side 2 of the album. Now, I really like this song. I think it's one of the more overlooked songs on Revolver, and I must confess, whenever I'm listening to this album, I kind of forget this song exists. I hear For No One, and then for some reason, after that I'm expecting it to go into I Want to Tell You, but then Dr. Robert comes on and it's always a pleasant surprise because I'm like, why do I keep forgetting this song exists? It's a really, really good song. I love the story behind this song as well, the idea of this NHS doctor flying about just giving out drugs willy-nilly to everyone and the mother. Obviously this wasn't going on in the National Health Service in the 1960s, but it's quite a funny idea anyway, and Lennon is tapping into what was going on at least in a counterculture in the 60s at this point with drugs. It was very much a drug culture at this point in the 60s, especially acid, and it was natural that the Beatles and John Lennon was going to write a song about it, I suppose. One of the things I especially love about this song is the well, well, well part. For the most part, it's a pretty bog standard rock and roll song. I can see why it was considered one of the more simple songs on Revolver, but when it goes into that bridge and it goes well, 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 and Lennon's harmonium kicks in, it just turns into this full-scale psychedelic song, and I love it. It's my favourite part of the song. It's almost like you've suddenly been put under this daze of drugs by this Dr. Robert character, and now he's like, well, 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 etc. It's just that it's very trippy it's a very trippy bridge. I really like it. It is by far for me the highlight of the whole song. Now I think of all the Lennon songs on Revolver, this is arguably his weakest track. However, I must say this is not a bad song, and on any other album this would be considered probably the best track on it. But in terms of Lennon's other songs on the album, I think all of them are better than this one personally. I've said numerous times in other Lennon videos in this series that this period of John Lennon was my favourite period, his psychedelic era. I think this was him at his absolute peak, and this is another great psychedelic song from him. It's maybe less psychedelic than something like I'm Only Sleeping, but it's a great song, especially that well, well, well part. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun song. That's all it is. It's an innocent, fun song. And it's quite remarkable that people didn't get uptight about it at the time. Now, speaking of people getting uptight at the time, I'm surprised this song went under the radar as much as it did, because it's pretty obvious this song is about drugs. It's a damn sight more obvious than a song like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on the next album, Sgt. Pepper. And obviously Lucy got completely banned by the BBC from being played on radio. I don't know if it's still banned to this day, but obviously that was because of the whole thing of people thinking, Lucy, Sky, Diamonds, well, it's about LSD, this song. But Dr. Robert, it is blatantly obvious this song is about drugs, and it just went completely under the radar. No one seemed to pick up on it at the time. Now, I wonder if it's because of where it's sequenced on the album. This song is sequenced quite deep in the album, And compared to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is the first Lennon track on Sgt. Pepper, and it's only the third track on the album, I wonder if when the powers that be were listening to Revolver, if by the time they got to Dr. Robert, they kind of zoned out a bit and stopped paying attention, and that's how this one went under the radar. Quite a clever tactic if that is what the Beatles were thinking. They thought, we'll put that there because they probably won't realise this song is about drugs, because the people who are going to notice that sort of thing will have zoned out by this point. Don't know if that's true, but it's a cool story if it is true. I did briefly touch on it before, but I do think they did the right thing shortening this song. I feel that what we lost, and whilst it is interesting to hear it on the deluxe edition of the album, I don't feel like we lost anything great. I feel like if anything it improved the song by shortening a bit. It just takes, I feel like a third bridge was perhaps a bridge too far, pardon the pun. But yeah, I think they did do the right thing taking it off. It's still, I mean, I'm pleased we have it released now so we can hear it if we want to, but I wouldn't listen to the longer version over the shortened version, in my opinion anyway, personally. Anyway, to conclude here, because I'm rambling on, and I don't actually feel there's that much to really say about this song, so this has probably turned out to be a shorter video, but I really like this song. I think it's a real good one. I think it is Lennon's weakest track, admittedly, on Revolver, but it's not a bad song. It's still a great song. It's just not as good as his other songs on here. It's a song that I personally often forget exists on Revolver, and then when I hear it, I'm pleasantly taken by surprise by how good it is. And yeah, like I say, the well, well, well bit, the psychedelic bridge, I love that portion of the song. For me, it is by far the highlight of the song. So yeah, Dr. Robert, fantastic song. So that concludes another episode of Revolver in Depth, folks. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, right, I'll do the joke. Come on, do what Paul's doing there. Give it a thumbs up, everybody. Paul would appreciate it. Also, leave a comment. Do you like this song? What do you think of Dr. Robert? Is it one of your favourites on the album? Do you think it's Lennon's weakest track? Do you think it's Lennon's best track on Revolver? Do let me know in the comments. That would be very much appreciated. Speaking of appreciation, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe, because that would mean a great deal to me. If you've enjoyed this episode and you've not seen the previous episodes in this series, well, good news, there is a playlist on my channel called Revolver in Depth where you can find all the previous episodes, and all future episodes will also be added to that playlist. Anyway, join me next time here on Revolver in Depth, where I want to tell you something because my head is filled with things to say. Till then though, do take care.